Blind Nil Audio.
If I were to say, like, what is pain? How would you answer that question?
Pain is this indication for me. It's like, oh my God, that was not right.
So it's an indicator.
Yes.
People will call it a sensation. Pain is an emotion. A guy fell off a ladder, I think it was somewhere in the UK, and a 15-centimeter nail went through his boot, writhing in pain. They had to put him on morphine just to get him to calm down. They x-rayed the boot, went right between his toes.
Oh, shit.
Went right between his toes.
He just saw it come through and he's like, oh my God.
Here's the key, and there's a lot to be gleaned from this. It was real. He wasn't faking it. Your brain is guessing about what reality is.
Welcome to Stronger. Today's guest is Dr. Jordan Shallow, a sports performance expert, master chiropractor, and world-class educator. Together, we're diving into the topic of pain, how to manage it, how to better understand it, and how to recognize the difference between everyday pain and true injury. I'm Don Saladino. Let's get stronger with Dr. Jordan Shallow.
All right, so this is really exciting for me, and I'm gonna tell you why. First off, all the guests that I'm bringing on right now are people I have a connection with, but you're like, you know, there's Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, there's Evie, there's, and I don't want to devalue anything from anyone else. I'm in the process of writing my book right now with Charles Thorpe. We're halfway through it, and we had to do the acknowledged section, and you know, you're in it. I mean, it's obvious. No, but that's just to say that there's a reason why I love you so much, and I'm going to break it down. One, how we met's hilarious, and I think that's a really funny story, and we should probably get into that at some point. We don't have to mention names, right? That's number one. Well, we could. Two, you know, you're obviously brilliant in the industry, and I was always fascinated from learning from incredibly smart people, especially when they had specific areas of expertise that I'm like, oh wow, this is so beyond what I actually have. So to be able to sit here and even on social media watching you, but just sitting and having conversations at dinner. But the most important part is that my kids call you Uncle Jordan, and my wife is like, you know, it's her home. But it's like, oh, well, who's coming in? Oh, Jordan, just give him the code. He's like, you know, so I think that says a lot about you as a person. And everyone sees this like tatted up powerlifting guy who's incredibly articulate and very knowledgeable, but you're Uncle Jordan. And I'm just like, I almost get choked up talking about it right now. Like you can.
You better, because if I start, you better come with. You better come with.
But I think this show is not about. You know, I don't have to wow people with science. I want to really deliver information at a very understandable level where people can be like, oh, wow, I learned something, but wow, that person's cool, right? And I think that's been a consistent theme along the way, is that there's been a lot of highs and lows for the people coming on here. So, you know, I know today we're going to cover a very specific topic, pain, but as we're getting into this, I want to give a little backstory. You know, you were living in your car at one point. I mean, you're one of the most successful strength coaches, I think, around. If I'm going to go to pick the top two people for, I think, pain management and strength and conditioning, you're on that list. You're on the top two list. I mean, that's a special list. I mean, I know Poliquin's gone and Boyle and all these guys, but I'm putting Dr. Jordan Shallow on that list. So give us some backstory, man.
Yeah. Maybe at the intersection of when we met, it's a good place to kick off.
That was fun.
I went to chiropractic college out of undergrad, and I moved to California. And immediately out of school, I got a job as a chiropractor at Apple. Like, you know, where your phone, you're on the MacBook there or whatever. So they have a corporate wellness center. And, you know, it's very competitive getting talent in the Bay Area, engineers, developers, all that. So there's a lot of corporate incentive. So one of the big things that incentivizes talent to go to particular companies, NVIDIA, Apple, Google, Facebook, Pinterest, whatever, is corporate wellness, right? Mm-hmm. So I worked at the corporate wellness center as a chiropractor, and then kind of went from Apple to Stanford. And then I started competitive powerlifting as well. So I was always into lifting weights. And then just so happened that the first real patient I had in clinical practice owned a gym. And, you know, he was beat up from himself being a competitive powerlifter. So I kind of saw an opportunity. I would go see him at his gym multiple times a week, treat him in various capacities, talk about his training. He's a really, really smart lifter. And then that evolved to me having office space in his gym. I would treat him. He would coach me. And then got into powerlifting. You know, I had a knack for it. Was already decently strong in lifting weights for sports as a kid.
And you totaled what, 1900 competitively?
Yeah, I think my best total in a meet was 1901. I did that in 18.
Yeah, so for people who don't understand what that is, it's your bench, your squat, and your deadlift totaling 1,900 pounds. So squat had to be what, 7, 8 and change? What were you,
Yeah,
7?
so I think that meet would have been 200, so kilograms, 200 kilos, 441 pound bench press, a 755 pound deadlift, and a 737 pound squat. Something I think squat I'm unsure about.
Sure.
But yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so all of these things, like my whole day was working out. So I got to kind of see movement through a lot of different lenses, right? From this clinical lens in a general population setting at a place like Apple, through an athletic lens and a sports performance and also rehabilitation at Stanford. And then, from a pure like resistance training, muscle building, strength building lens when I was at my office. And, just started seeing where all the holes were. That really kind of set me down the path of like, okay, now when I go to explain it and we can curate our curriculum at Prescript, it was those 3 experiences that kind of set me down that path, because Prescript is what ultimately took me away from all of those jobs.
Right. And just a little back, just quickly, Prescript, I would say is probably, I think it's the number one certification educational platform like out there. Like I don't think that there's a higher level of education when it comes down to certifying trainers. And it's not even something I would tell like a newbie or a beginner to get into. I would say, get your feet wet a little bit, learn the ropes, and then you go into level 1, level 2, level 3. So I speak very highly of it.
I appreciate that.
So you built up this resume. You started becoming known for the coach who really specialized in blending, I think, sport performance with corrective rehabilitation. I mean, I wouldn't even know if that's the right way or the way that you want to be referred to as, but you are like, I've had problems, I've had injuries, hockey, whatever it is, and you're one of the first people on a phone with. And I mean, the first thing for me is always, oh my God, when something goes wrong, you immediately know. You're like, oh my God, I just broke my foot. Oh my God, I just broke my hand. My shoulder got dislocated, something. And immediately, for some reason, my head always goes to like, oh my God, am I gonna be able to squat? Am I gonna be able to press? It's just where my head always goes. My thought process is that I want to get back to training as quickly as possible. I'm always like, oh, I don't like taking time off. How can I train? I remember breaking my wrists and literally having a safety squat bar, and I couldn't even wrap my hands around it. And I had my palms on the safety squat bar as the handles were going in. I remember squatting to a box because my knees were, I think, dislocated from just a bad injury. But I remember all of those times that I learned to train around pain. That was things. One, I learned more about my body than I ever would have if I didn't. Because I feel like when you go through it, it's different. I mean, you learn how to rehab yourself. But pain is something I think most people out there get incredibly freaked out about. And then there's different forms of pain, right? Like there's chronic, there's acute. Like there's so many different ways that I want to hear how you would break it down. But like, what is your start from like pain 101. Like we're talking to a 13-year-old here. And I know it's very hard for you to do. I know you don't like to do it, but seriously, like how are we, because I think the purpose of this episode today is to allow people to distinguish between, is there good pain? Is there bad pain? Do you need to lay off? Do you not need to lay off? It's all contingent upon the injury, but I want to hear your perspective on things. And let's just try and start with a very...
Okay. Yeah.
You got this.
Okay. Let's I've been practicing. How would you describe, and not describe pain qualitatively as like a sharp or stabbing shooting or something like that? Like if I were to say like, what is pain? Like how would you answer that question? And there's no wrong answer.
No, yeah, I know. Pain is this indication for me. It's like, oh my God, that's not blood getting into the muscle where I'm like, oh, this hurts. Like it's complete. Pain is like, oh my God, something jarring. Like that was not right.
So it's an indicator.
Yes.
Yeah. So and look, you can ask 1,000 different people and you're going to get 1,000 different answers. Sure. I think fundamentally pain is a framework. People will call it a sensation, right? Pain is a sensation. Pain is an emotion, right? And it's like, yes.
Yeah, it's all.
Yes, it's all that.
It's all right.
But okay, so all of those fit within a framework. And the framework that it all fits in is it fits in our perceptual framework, right? Like, so what is like our perception is what is consciously aware to us. Like, what are we perceiving right now? Like, whether it's we're seeing the lights, if we're feeling the texture of the chair, whatever our conscious awareness sort of brings into this like global workspace in our brain. And pain is in itself a perception. We perceive pain in our conscious awareness. And the tricky thing about pain there's two bookends, right? Because pain is a perception, and in order for us to understand how pain is a perception, we need to understand how we perceive, which is like kind of tricky.
It's tricky because it's different for everyone, right?
Well, it's different for everyone, and so here's the thing: like the pain that I think you and I discuss the most when it comes to injuries and things like that is what's called nociceptive pain.
Yeah.
Right. So there are different types of pain, like visceral pain. But when we talk about lifting, we're talking about nociceptive pain, right? Like my elbow hurts when I bench press type stuff. My shoulder hurts when I squat or whatever it is. So nociceptive pain fits within this framework, this perceptual framework, but it's the same perceptual framework that we use for everything. Do you remember the Facebook blue dress, gold dress thing? Do you remember that was going around?
No.
Do you guys remember that? Yeah. Okay. What
that.
did you see?
I saw blue.
I saw blue.
I think so too.
Okay. Do you remember this?
No, I don't.
Okay. So it was a viral phenomenon where with certainty, some people were perceiving, I want to say like a white and black dress or white and gold, and the other cohort was perceiving blue and black.
Wow.
Right. And it was going around. And like, you're so certain. I think I saw blue and black or whatever it was. And someone was like, no, it's like white and gold. I'm like,
what's wrong with you?
The funny thing is these happen, these sort of illusory things happen all the time where it actually gives us an indicator that our reality is liable to our perception. So, there's a really famous case study done where a guy fell off a ladder. I think it was somewhere in the UK, and a 15 centimeter nail went through his boot, writhing in pain. They had to put him on morphine just to get him to calm down. They brought him into the X-ray. They X-rayed the boot. Went right between his toes.
No shit.
Went right between his toes. Didn't puncture his foot at all. They needed to sedate this guy because of the pain that he was perceiving.
Because of what he thought happened.
Because of what he thought happened.
That is bananas.
Oh yeah, well documented. So here, what do we have so far? We have pain in the presence of no tissue damage.
Didn't even cut him. Nothing. He just saw it come through and he's like, oh my God.
And here's the key, and there's a lot to be gleaned from this. It was real.
Oh yeah.
Right? It was real. Right? If anyone's ever been on morphine, like that's you're gonna find out pretty quick, right? Like what's real and what's not. He wasn't faking it. But there was no injury. And this is like the first pebble in the shoe that we need to kind of pay attention to, because it's like here we have the perception of pain in the absence of tissue damage, because there is difference between pain and an injury, and there's clearly difference between pain and nociception. So nociception is just the raw sensory data of the experience of pain. Our perception, not even our perception of pain, everything we're perceiving right now. So people are watching this, they're seeing us interact. There's that they heard this, maybe like all of this is it's all offered up to your in your conscious theater. Your brain is guessing about what reality is.
This episode of Stronger is brought to you by MitoPure. With MitoPure, you're getting more than just a supplement. You're getting a product that's been proven by over 15 years to target the effects of aging from inside out. So I fell in love with MitoPure because this is a supplement called urolithin A. Your mitochondria is, the example I give is, this is the car battery for your cells. So by taking a supplement like MitoPure, this is recharging your car battery. And this is what is helping us reduce the speed of aging. And this is helping us, increase energy levels and sleep quality. And MitoPure has turned into one of my top 3 favorite supplements. And this is something that I will not live without now, because I've seen such a quick return on how my skin is rejuvenating and how my body feels. Timeline is offering 20% off your first order of MitoPure. Go to timeline.com/stronger. That's TIMELINE.com/stronger.
There's obviously different levels of pain, different forms of pain, different ways that you would categorize pain. What happens when, sometimes people train, right? And they start feeling, the elbows. People will choose exercises according to muscles. You'll choose exercises according to basically success on how someone can move, right? I mean, you're not necessarily saying, well, I'm going to choose a pull-up because it does this. If someone can't get into the position of a pull-up, you might have them do a neutral grip pull-up.
Yeah, because look, the sooner we can all get on board with lifting as learning and training as teaching,
Yep.
we're going to make way better decisions around exercise.
Right.
Right? Because, the word motor learning gets thrown around a lot. And, a lot of times people are just talking about technique. Right. But motor learning has more to do with skill acquisition than actual movement execution. Right. Because if I, let's say, for example, I'm not great at math, so would surprise no people. If you were trying to teach me fractal equations, right, but I don't know basic arithmetic, I can't get there from here. Right, like I need to know these basics. I need to have this olive branch extended to me. I need to leave this trail of breadcrumbs for me to build up to that. One of the things that the fitness community specifically struggles with and I think you're probably one of the best communicators at this through your programming and just through your rhetoric and your dialogue, is that most people can't be physically empathetic, like people in our industry can't be physically empathetic to someone who's never played sports, never worked out, and is walking to the gym for the first time in like their mid 30s or 40s or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's akin to like learning a language. We don't see it that way, right? And a lot of the reason we don't see it that way is people in our industry go like, you just like squat. You just put the bar on your back and you sit down. It's like, well, the mind the conscious mind is an interface, right? So if you guys have a website, you have a couple of them.
Yeah, sure.
You poke around on that. They don't let you touch that stuff.
What, on the website?
Yeah.
Yeah, I poke around on it. I'm not making adjustments.
Right.
Mel will kill me.
Right. Exactly. Good. God bless. I love you, Mel. So it's like, same thing. I have a website, I have a few of them, and like, they're robust now. Like my CTO goes in and he like codes stuff and builds stuff, and there's Figma boards, and I know enough words to sound smart, but like at the end of the day, but when we started the company, I don't know, Shopify or Squarespace or Wix or whatever, and I was just dragging and dropping shit. Oh yeah, I was like Bob Ross. I'm like, we're gonna put a little tree right here.
Yeah, why not?
Our little secret. Yeah, why not?
And we see that a lot in the industry, right? We see a lot of people just selecting stuff because of how it looks, and it's a recipe for disaster sometimes.
But so the point here is, when I was dragging and dropping shit into a website, I would never proclaim that I know how to build a website.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I know that building a website is like, HTML, or are you coding it in Python? Are you using like Liquid framework? Like there's a lot that goes into building a website. But at the end of the day, why is Squarespace and Shopify and WordPress so successful? It's because they have this interface, right? They have an interface that anyone can do it. The conscious mind and the unconscious brain use movement as an interface, where it's like, we don't necessarily need to be neuroscientists. We just need to know how to move the body correctly to harness this compute power. Right? You and I can build a website. We don't need to know all of the computer science. We don't need to know all the ones and zeros and the bits and shit, right? So it's like, in understanding movement, and if we understand that the goal of proper exercise selection is learning, it's not necessarily about challenging muscle. That comes later, right? But if we can teach people how to learn motor skills, we can get them to their goal, whether it's weight loss, whether it's sports performance, rehabilitation, all of that. But
things just start happening, I feel like, when you start treating exercise as a skill. I really feel like because progressive overload, it's not always going to happen, right? Like you're not always going to be able to add more weight and get stronger and get stronger. It doesn't happen.
Right.
And there are times where you've gone in, you've grabbed the 110s and you're pressing overhead and you're like, all right, it's not going up for 6 or 7 like it did last week. It's going up for 5. Like how you treat that, I think, is a really important thing, because most people are going to look at that as, oh, I'm failing, I'm regressing, I'm not. You approach that a bit differently. You might. Your brain's set up differently to go in and to understand, how am I going to be successful with this exercise right now or with this weight that I'm using, correct?
Well, yeah, because performance has 3 prongs to it, right? There's the objectification of like, okay, was it 110s or was it 120s or was it 100s? Was it 8 reps? Was it 10 reps? Was it 4 reps, right? So that's undoubtedly a part of performance. Now, the tricky part is that's the part that we see, but there's 2 other parts that are really important. And I would argue that the part we see, the objectification of like how fast, how heavy, how long, whatever, is as a byproduct of the other two components that are beneath the surface, which is, hey, how did it feel? Right? Which is key, which is something that, and again, in the over objectification, data driven rather than data informed world that we live in, with, you know, wearables of different types and different training tools, measuring bar speed and all that. And then just some of the classic metrics of like how heavy, how much you bench. That's only one part of the equation, but how you feel is as important and is as a prerequisite to how you perform. And it sounds kind of, you know, cliche, but it's true. But also how things look, right? So, you know, you and I are fitness professionals in various capacities and in various settings. If I watch someone do something and it looks bad, it looks inefficient, it looks asynchronous, it looks disjointed, it looks uncoordinated, well, yeah, look, it may objectively have gone up, but I want all three of these things to move, right? And if one's not moving, I want to look to the subjective, right? So how does it feel and how does it look? These are questions that we have to ask, and we have to trust that we can objectify subjective data. That is such a conceptual divide for people, that can you bring subjectivity into the objective realm? And it's like nothing else matters. Like, and you good athletes will teach you this, right? Good athletes, they're not in the weight room, they're not super strong, right? I have a friend of mine, Corey Schlesinger, is a strength coach for the Detroit Pistons. He always says the best player, and I hope this, I'm not outing him or anything, but the best players in the gym sit next to him during the games. Right? Because it's not just about being strong, right? Athleticism is about learning. If I were to describe athleticism in a single sentence, I would say it's the ability to learn motor skills quickly. Who's the best athlete of all time?
Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson, without a doubt. Why?
Bo Jackson.
Because he's all time in two different sports, two completely different sets of motor skills.
But he also combines a level of take the talent, take the ability in his sports, strength, power, speed, muscularity. He puts together a package that I don't think, because other people say, well, Allen Iverson. I'm like, fine, Allen Iverson can't bench 185 pounds. Like, right. Bo would pick up 500 pounds. He didn't like lifting. You hear him talk. He's like, I felt, why would I want to do something that makes me tired when I have to be ready for sport? A little bit of truth to that, right?
But I mean, he's a guy who learns motor skills quickly, right? So everything even muscularity, is an acquired skill, right? So that was his like when you watch a Bo Jackson, you know, crack a bat over his head or, you know, run a 4.340.
It's frightening. You almost look at it and you're like, oh my God, it's like abrupt.
Yeah. But when you watch him do that, those are measures of output, right? Like you and I it would take both of us to snap a Louisville Slugger.
Oh, I ain't doing it.
Right?
I played baseball. I ain't doing it. I can't.
So like we know the pounds per square inch of force it would take to do that. And it's like grotesque. But when you see that objective measure, what you're actually seeing is the refinement of quality. I worked with an athlete once who told me that early in his career, he's a tennis player. Early in his career, he was sponsored by a Japanese racket company. And there was a mishap in the way that they were manufacturing the racket that he was sort of sponsored to have. They're like he sent him his rackets. He was very successful. He's still very successful, but was very successful, a phenom. Like, you know, arguably from a raw talent perspective, one of the best tennis players to ever play the game. And I remember being in the locker room at Wimbledon, and I was with him, and I think it was Andy Murray came up and grabbed my client's racket and started like just admiring it. Now Andy Murray's like, you know, Murray, Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal, the top four all time. And this is in Wimbledon. So it's like and he's taking out his racket and he's admiring it. It's like, oh, this is so cool. And like it kind of confused me. Like, I'm sure it's Andy Murray. He can get any racket he wants. And my client and his agent were there. It's like, no, they only make this for me. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, no, I'm serious. And he explains to that when he was 17, he was playing with a racket. He was very successful. And they changed the racket and didn't tell him. But he knew. So he got his rackets and he was practicing with them, smashed them on the ground. I was like, this isn't my racket. And his agent picks it up and like looks at his old one, looks at his new one.
It's the same thing.
Dude, what are you talking about? Yeah. Like, you know, if you don't want to play, that's fine.
So obvious. It's so
And so he calls, he's like, I talk to him. I'm not playing until I get my racket. Call like a racket company. Like, hey, he told me I got to call. I don't know what's going on. I see the same racket. And the agent's like, what? You knew about this? And they're like, yeah, like, I don't know, different material or manufacturer, different plant, whatever. I didn't think he'd notice. Like, he noticed. It's a sensitivity
Right.
He has the biggest serve on tour.
Right. Golfers have the same. I've heard of golfers who, they would wrap the underneath the grip. So if you want 1 wrap, 2 wraps. So it's not only that you're ordering like a standard size grip or a mid-size grip or a jumbo grip. Sometimes what they'll do in between the different grips is they'll put a wrap of tape on it. And I've heard tour players grabbing the same grip and being like, oh no, this is 1 wrap, not 2.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, it's a layer of tape underneath. And they're like, no,
inch.
I mean, golfers are so particular that the shaft is in grams. I mean, if it's a gram off, 2 grams off, they'll pick it up and be like, oh, this feels completely different.
And that's what's driving the engine.
Right.
Is that the subjectivity is driving the engine, right? So it's the feel that allows for, it's the input that drives the output. Like let's take a squat, for example. Let's try and make this exercise.
Sure.
9 times out of 10, if you bring someone in who's never squatted before, their squats are going to look like deadlifts. The chest is going to fall on their knees and their ass is going to fall back, right? So it's sort of like a horizontal, the pelvis moves back. That's kind of what a deadlift is. Pelvis moves down. That's kind of what a squat is, right? So when you go like, all right, I want you to squat, and their ass goes back, and most people go like, all right, well, I said squat, and that's what you did, so that was a squat. It's like, no, that wasn't a squat.
Mm-hmm.
It was a deadlift, right? So what you see there is you see a disconnect. There's a barrier in the way of learning that skill, and that barrier exists in the brain, right? The brain is perceiving the body to be in a different starting position than our eyes are perceiving it. If you're, out of shape, maybe a little long in the waistband, that center of mass is out in front of you. So your body is automatically calling on all ships to keep you upright. So maybe your low back gets a little bit tight. Maybe your shoulder blades, start burning a little bit when you're doing the dishes and you're bending over. Maybe your calves are tight when you squat. All of these things are just the brain is firing these things at all cylinders because it's not in the same, your hardware doesn't match your software. You
know what's funny about that? When you use the squat as the reference, that's something that's always been in my programming at specific phases during the year. The back might become the front or Zercher or whatever it might be. If I stay away from squatting, which I'm saying this because I started back squatting again this week. I started high barring. I set up a camera on a profile. And I literally, in between every set, I would go from my warm-up sets to my last set. And probably all in, we're looking at, 9 sets, 8 sets, a few feeler sets. Then I ran like a 5x5, really basic stuff, right? I would go back and I'd have to watch a video on every single repetition of every single set because I felt like those 3 months from not back squatting, there was a disconnect on what I was feeling and what I was perceiving because the feeling changes.
Yeah, for sure.
Now I'm sitting there with the bar, it's high, where when I was squatting through the winter, I was low, right? So now that changes everything, right? And now, my body's shaking differently. I'm unsure on where my depth is. Am I hitting depth? So I almost felt like I lost that skill in a way where when I watched the video, I was like, oh, wow, it actually looks good, but it feels like this. And then as the sets were going on, I started developing I felt like I started developing that skill again in confidence. I'm not there. It's still going to take me, and I know it's going to take me weeks to where I kind of get back to the point where I'm like, all right, we're in a good place. And it's fascinating that that's just 3 months. And I've been squatting for 30 years.
So you bring up something interesting. And you will learn faster if you keep watching films between sets because we're kind of switching neurological systems.
No, it's fine.
But think of visualization, right? Visualization is a practice that's used a lot in sports psychology. And there's a neurological correlate to visualization, which means there's a part of the brain when it comes to motor skills that's really at the helm of updating so think of it this way. Like if you were to have shoot a free throw. When's the last time you shot a basketball?
Oh, it was actually last week.
Okay. Prior to that, was it
a while?
A while. Okay.
It was a while.
Not something you do often, but you have a motor pattern it's like if someone hands you a basketball right now, you got a dusty thing on the shelf in your brain that you're going to pull off the shelf and it deploys this synchronization of different muscular co-contractors. That exists in this pathway called your cerebrocerebellar pathway. And the tricky part with this, and not tricky, but like the potent part of this this part of your brain is always updating movements, whether you're performing them or not. Right. So the classic adage for this is, oh, it's like riding a bike. Like, oh, okay. Interesting. one of the reasons that we don't really ever forget how to ride a bike is because we're always exposed to bike riding, right? You especially now, you're going down Fifth Ave,
Watching
and there's
City Bike,
people's bikes everywhere. There's bikes. You don't realize that that's actually updating your prior. That's updating so that's calling to memory. So muscle memory is a term that gets used a lot.
Right.
And it's very misunderstood, not because people don't understand things about muscles. It's because they don't understand things about memories.
Right.
People think that your memory is a time-stamped VHS that sits in your brain that you then take and put into the VCR. Listen to me. The Blu-ray or the streaming thing where you just hit play
You
again.
weren't alive during VCR.
Yes, I was. Stop that. I remember watching Die Hard recorded off of TNT on a VHS. But so the point being is people think that's the way your memory works. It's this time-stamped record of what happened that's stored in your brain. It's like not at all how it works. It's actually one of the most deceitful, unreliable sources of information, because flashbulb memories are really good examples of this. So like the one that gets thrown around a lot is 9/11, right? Where I've heard your story a handful of times. You were living down, you could see the right, and I remember my version, but what I remember is not the time-stamped memory of driving from the orthodontist appointment to Mrs. Hayes' 6th grade class and telling her. That's what I think I remember, but I'm not remembering that. I'm remembering the last time I remembered it, which was a memory of the last time I remembered it, But when it comes to exercise, the interesting thing is the muscle memory works the same way. So the reason that you can ride a bike after not riding a bike for 20, 30 years is because even though you weren't on the bike, you see bikes everywhere. Go to Amsterdam and walk around. You'll be proficient in bike riding without ever stepping on the pedals because everyone rides bikes, right? So you can use that prior with little sensory data to update the perception and learn the skill faster, right? So visualization and when learning skills of exercise is like, well, we need to have a task that can be performed, right? That isn't physically bottlenecked by range of motion or work capacity or something like that, or strength. But if you onboard someone and on-ramp someone with exercises of increasing complexity and demand, and you understand that, if I'm trying to learn how to squat, my last focus in the early stages is like glutes or quads or adductors. Right, it's like, what are we doing here? We're trying to do fractal equations, but we don't know 1 + 1, right? So, but if I give you, hey, we're going to start with a counterbalance squat. Like, well, what's that? So you're going to hold a weight at arm's length. Well, you can't hold a lot of weight, can you? No. But this matches your hardware and your software. It's like, well, it's going to push your center of mass back. It's going to force you to want to drop your spine, a little more upright. You mean elevate the heel does the same thing. And then rather than going from maybe I could hold a 45-pound plate out at shoulder like this, maybe. And my shoulders are failing before my legs. So then we can move to like a goblet squat with a dumbbell or a kettlebell. So now I'm here. The very fact of this is a load man. Now I can lift more, right? I can hold more here than I can hold at arm's length. But I've also changed the position of the center of mass, right? And it's a little bit more challenging, not just because it's heavy, it's heavier because it's more challenging, right? So it's like here I'm in this position where it's like, okay, it's pulling me in a certain direction. I've learned how to pull and stay a little bit upright. I'm not going to be as upright as I was before, and it's heavier. And then we move to a front squat, and then a high bar squat, and then a low bar squat. But a lot of people, they just go, we'll just put a bar on their back day one and just do low bar squats. It's like, you're treating this like training. You need to teach it. You need to treat it like teaching, and you need to look at learning or lifting as learning.
Pain and performance, in a way, what we're talking about, it's almost the same. It's almost the same answer to it. Like, we're talking about not loading dysfunction. We're talking about exercise selection being incredibly important, not because of what it's doing to the muscle, but the position it's putting you in that's going to allow you to be successful. And what I like to refer to it as is if we can get into a successful position, we're like removing the parking brake from the moving car, right? And I think that's the best way to put it. But not only are we going to establish more of a higher success, a level of success for ourselves when it comes down to staying out of pain, but we're also going to perform a lot better. We're also going to get a lot stronger. So what's been valuable about this is that we're talking about right now how to make sure that as we're training, we're not, because you hear it all the time. How's training? Oh, I love it, but elbows and my knees and my back. And it's like, all right, that's a red flag there. In my opinion, that just might mean that your exercise selection not even exercise necessarily the programming, but the exercise selection could be off. Maybe you're choosing two movements that you're just trying to drive a really large, nail through a really small hole that's just not working, right? In a way, there's no answer to this. Like when we're talking about pain, I mean, what did we get out of that today is be really careful on the movements that you select, not only to keep yourself out of potentially being in pain, but to actually improve performance.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking general population, elbow pain, shoulder pain, these are all signals that there's a qualitative issue, not a quantitative issue. Okay. Right? It's not about doing more, it's about doing it better. Right? Oh, my elbows hurts because I bench too much. No, you don't bench well. Right. So I think quality is the main takeaway.
So I'm looking at this not only as pain, but as performance. What I'd like to do right now is Chris, we have a question coming in.
Yeah, I've got one for you guys. This is Aaron from Los Angeles.
Hi, Don. Hi, Dr. Shallow. My name is Aaron. I am an avid hiker. I like to hike here in the Verdugo Mountains in beautiful Burbank, California. I like to hike uphill. I like to run downhill, but my knees are not as young as they once were. And I'm wondering if there are ways to mitigate pain. Are there pre or post workout things that I should be doing? Are there postural ideas for running downhill? Because I'm not going to stop. Thanks.
All that.
Yeah. So it's great. I think there's some things we can do in the short term, and I think there's some big picture things that are worth looking at. So it really kind of comes down to the squat thing again, the center of mass. It's about understanding like what do we need to do in what phase of movement are we in when we're doing both of those tasks? Okay? So when we're walking uphill, our center of mass we have to push it forward. How do we do that? Our ass goes back, our chest goes forward, right? So when you walk uphill, if you ran downhill the way you walked uphill, you wouldn't be running downhill. You'd be rolling downhill.
Yeah.
Because your center of mass would be too far outside of your base of support. So I think one of the things in a very, in almost an immediate thing you can do when you're running downhill is you need to try and stay relaxed through the shoulders because you need your center of mass to be lower because you can't let that center of mass get out in front of you. A lot of people, when they run, they bring the shoulder blades together and the chest comes up. That means the center of mass goes forward, your spine goes into extension. It can be hard, depending on how fast you're going, to cue your body to drop your shoulders down and almost push them forward. Because as you push your shoulders forward, your center of mass comes back. The center of mass is already going forward because gravity is pitching it forward for you. So when I see people, take a tumble or run downhill, oftentimes they get into this position where their shoulder blades are together and the chest comes up and their spine is extended. It's like you're doing what the hill is already doing for you and it's working against you.
Right.
You're in a position that's consistent with like producing force and you need to absorb force. So you need to relax the shoulders, try and even protract your shoulder blades around, get more of your mass out in front of you, like keep your arms out in front of you as much as you can. Not for anything other than that's going to push your center of mass back and it's going to keep your center of mass in your base of support. A lot of people, when they run, the feet go behind them and their chest goes forward and the center of mass goes with it. It's like the center of mass is already being pulled forward because of the pitch of the hill. You need to and it's maybe even be counterintuitively drop the shoulders, get them out in front of you, and get your center of mass back. If your shoulders are up, you're liable to your upper body isn't absorbing the force with you. Now your knees have to do more. Right. So if I don't have this shock absorber up here, it's going to be all liable to my lower extremity. Two, it's going to actually put my lower extremity in a better position.
Right.
By anteriorly tilt, that's not a great way for you to use my quads as a decelerator as I go down. So if I want to keep a posterior tilt, which is kind of consistent with this drop shoulder, consistent with the center of mass back, I'm now in a position to use my muscles better to absorb force as I run downhill.
Rather than pretty much your joints.
Your joints, yeah.
So what you're saying is shoulders forward.
Get as much of your mass out in front of you as you can.
Okay.
Push your center of mass back when you run downhill. And then there's there's a bigger answer to that of like, well, what can we do to reinforce these types of patterns in the gym? Right? Can we get stronger at absorbing force? Can we start to load into these positions? Because, internal rotation is what produces force. External rotation is what accepts force. So, maybe you try improving, mobility into external rotation, stretch out your hips before you go on these hikes and see if that doesn't help. But then really learn how to load into more external rotation. Exercises like a front foot elevated split squat, where you put your foot on like a plate and you load some weight out in front of you. So you get used to this exposure because everyone puts weight on their back, weight in their hands, their chest comes up. So when the going gets tough, they default to these positions. Mm-hmm. The downhill is a completely different beast. You got to learn how to operate with deliberately pushing your center of mass back because gravity's pulling it forward.
I love it. Awesome. So first off, thank you. I feel like that episode, I mean, we could have sat on it for 4 hours, and it gets difficult sometimes, right? Because I think people want immediate answers, and it's not always that easy. I know, in my career, I feel like the more I learn, the more it becomes, well, it depends, but I think you gave an incredible framework on perception of pain. And I think you gave some great examples to some people who, exercise is a skill. I think this all kind of revolved around, things can go wrong if we start doing things that aren't correct.
Yeah. I mean, people want quick answers, but do you want right answers? Yeah. Like that's the thing. It's exactly. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson has this bit, and he's an astrophysicist or a cosmologist or whatever, and he's like, look, the universe is under no obligation to make sense to you, right? Like, and I cringe at the idea of like explain it to it's like, me at 13, what? I didn't know any of this at 13. That's why it took me an extra 17 years to get, or 20 something years to get here. So it's like, I think if this is over your head, the goal is for this to be in 5-10 years the way we talk about these things.
Sure.
Right. And then for someone else to sit here and push this forward again. But because if we sit and we don't take autonomy over good ideas, I think one of the issues that we struggle from an industry perspective is we've been operating off bad philosophy for a long time that has given us right answers to the wrong questions.
Right.
I think it was about changing your philosophy so you ask better questions.
I get that, but I also understand that, like you said, starting here with the squat, I'm trying to start here with this topic because I never want them to be discouraged. I want them to listen to you. You're brilliant. And I'm hoping that we all learn more. And I'm hoping we all educate ourselves more to the point where they could sit with you at a table and have a full conversation and understand what it is you're saying. I've evolved throughout the years, even speaking with you about that. Now I sit here and I get everything that you're saying. And I'm always like, oh, cool. Maybe 5-6 years ago, maybe sometimes I was like, God damn it, he's losing me right now. But that's the beauty of it. I think part of the excitement of this industry is that we're always learning and we're always getting better. And that's kind of my objective is I want to push people also to, want to understand more and not just say, you know what, just cook me the meal. I want them to learn how to cook it on their own. So I want to give a huge thank you to The Post. This place is awesome. I mean, this is we work for athletes, and just to have this on 23rd Street, you've been in here a few times already, Villa Roll, and everyone's cool. It's just a good vibe. And huge thank you. And we are going to have Jordan on a few more times to discuss other topics. I think we said we were going to cover recovery, and we're going to get into that stuff. So stay tuned and comment if you really enjoyed this. Thanks, guys.
The views, information, or opinions expressed in the series are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Chip and Joanna Gaines, Binel Audio, nor Magnolia.